represent. Who's here from Sacramento? All right, y'all. Let's see if I can make this not squeak. Good morning, everybody. How we doing? How we feeling? My name is Christina Livingston. I'm the executive director of the community organization ACE. ACE in the house? ACE is a statewide organization that works to bring people together across income, across race, across gender, to fight to change the world for themselves, for their communities, for their kids, and for people that we don't even know. Because we believe in the power of people. Do y'all believe in people power? You know what else we believe at ACE? We believe that the rent is too damn high. And we've got to do something about it. There's been a lot of talk about the cost of housing and housing affordability. In Washington, D.C., they're talking about it. They're talking about it here at the Capitol. Go to any city in the country, and the lack of affordable homes is a real emergency, not a temporary problem. This is a problem that has to be solved. It's most acute here in California. And in his State of the State address, Governor Newsom applauded the 9% decrease in the homelessness rate over the last year. But the reality is that if we cannot get rents and housing affordability under control, any progress we make of getting people off the streets is just going to be negated by new people becoming homeless because they cannot afford to live, cannot afford to pay the rent. So it's time for us to do something about this. Y'all agree with me? So, who's ready to fight for affordable housing in California? Fight, fight, fight! Housing is a human right! 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 All right, y'all sound like you're ready. Y'all sound like you're ready. I'm ready too, and I'm actually really delighted to introduce our first speaker. He's a real champion for renters in the legislature. He's fought for and won bills that improve the lives of low-income and working-class people for years, and he is our champion. He's the author of AB 1157. Please join me in welcoming Assemblymember Ash Kalra.
All right, everybody. I just drove in from San Jose. And it's so great to be here with all of you champions, each and every one of you that's taking the time to make your voice heard, that's taking the time to make your voice heard, that is standing up for those that can't be here today, the millions and millions of renters that are struggling to survive. And I'm honored to stand here with you today, the passionate and dedicated advocates, to speak on this critical issue that is plaguing many Californians. We know we're facing an affordable housing crisis that didn't occur overnight. This has been a result of decades of neglect in our housing supply and an accumulation of wealth by corporations that have priced out families from the American dream of home ownership. We cannot ignore our people's struggle and the calls for this legislature to do something about skyrocketing rent, which is why I authored AB 1157, the Affordable Rent Act. Now, while the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 established a limit on rent gouging and did create important tenant protections, the law still fell short of protecting every tenant. Even under current law, we are still seeing rental rates increase faster than wages can keep up, and evictions continue in shocking numbers. On top of that, people across the state are still feeling the impact of devastating natural disasters, the pandemic, and increases in cost of living. This has exacerbated an appalling crisis where families are forced to make the impossible choice between their rent, groceries, medical care, or other necessities. Something must be done, and the Affordable Rent Act is the solution.
That's right.
AB 1157 addresses the aggressive tactics of rent gouging and bringing a permanent solution to help address the affordable housing crisis. This bill extends just cause protections to all tenants, regardless of what type of rental you live in, because it shouldn't matter what kind of living situation you're in, whether it's a house or an apartment. It shouldn't matter to have those protections. You're just trying to get by. And while there is a wide range of issues that contribute to the affordable housing crisis, the Affordable Rent Act will bring relief by stabilizing the rental market, affording tenant protections to all tenants, and making this a permanent solution, not a temporary one. When we passed the original Tenant Protection Act almost six years ago, it was a major win for tenants' livelihoods, and it could not have happened without all of you being there and fighting for it. However, the Tenant Protection Act needs to be updated to address today's housing affordability crisis and provide immediate relief to millions of renters who continue to face annual rent increases of several $100s more per month. We have to acknowledge that that the current law is not enough for many renters. And some will say that housing production is the main issue. And while yes, we absolutely need to build more housing, and I have supported those measures time and again in this building to build more housing, we also need to focus on the now and keep families from being displaced, keep workers near their jobs, and ensure no one is pushed into homelessness due to a big rent increase. Now, I just mentioned I came from my district right now, San Jose. And I love San Jose, but we know it's the most expensive housing market in the nation right now. In fact, many of the most expensive housing markets in the nation are in California. And we know that we must look out for every Californian. And the reality is that if we care about dealing with homelessness, like we do, and like we say we do, if we care about making a California for all, then we have to make sure that Californian families aren't displaced. That the place that they call home can be their forever home. Housing is a human right. And the state must show its commitment to addressing housing affordability, not just in words, but in action. Thank you to ACE. Any ACE here? Thank you to ACE, Housing Now, Public Advocates, Pico, California, Unite Here 11, and many more supporters for joining us in this fight to protect our renters. Thank you to my colleagues who have signed on as co-authors. Let's thank them. And again, I want to end by thanking all the inspiring speakers and advocates here today with us, those watching back home for your dedication and relentless efforts to improve the housing conditions for every Californian. I know that these times are difficult. There's a lot going on in our world, a lot going on in our country. There's a lot going on in terms of the federal government sending folks into our communities, coming after our people. But we cannot allow that battle, which we must wage, to keep us from also remembering there are many battles and many fronts that we must be fighting for. And if we say we don't want ICE to be banging down the doors and ripping away our neighbors, we also must say we must protect those homes so that our families can be behind those doors and can call California home now and forever. Thank you so much.
Y'all, let's give one more round of applause for Okay, so What I want to do is turn the mic over to some folks who are impacted, because we all know that we can talk about the housing crisis and the numbers and the billions and the dollars and all of that, and it doesn't mean much until we actually see the faces of the people who are impacted. We hear their stories and we know who we are fighting for and who we are fighting with. Is that right? Yes. So I want you all to help me welcome Lydia Hernandez, who is a teacher and a member of the Claremont Tenants Union.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Lydia Hernandez. I live in LA County in Claremont, where my husband and I both work as public school teachers. I'm a member of Claremont Tenants United and Tenants Together, and I became involved in the struggle for tenants' rights when my landlord tried to no-fault evict me and my entire building to make, quote, luxury apartments, but we successfully came together and persuaded our city council to limit renovation evictions. In the early 2000s, my husband and I repeatedly put in bids trying to purchase a small condo in any of the neighboring towns, but kept losing out to all cash offers, so we settled into an apartment where we could start our family and wait for better market conditions. That was 23 years ago. We now have 3 children, the eldest of whom just graduated from community college. We watched and waited as the cost of buying a home skyrocketed along with everyday cost of living and raising children, and we've given up the dream of owning our own place and now instead worry about how long we will be able to afford the rent, the nearly double-digit % rent increases that we are receiving every year. The housing crisis does not discriminate on education level. I was proud to be the first person from either side of my family tree to go to college, making it all the way to the graduate degree level, but the ironic thing is I will be the first person in my family who can't afford to buy a home. Worse, I worry we will eventually not be able to afford our apartment, with the devastating effect of compounding rent raises. Over the past 5 years, our rent increases from our landlord, which are legal under AB 1482, have compounded to over a 52% increase in rent in the past 5 years. In just the last 2 years, our rent has gone up 17%, while our teacher salaries for my husband and I got a cumulative 1%. This is how hardworking people slowly become rent burdened, paying 30%, 40%, 50% and more of their income on housing until finally we can't. On Wednesday, I was on the way to school when I noticed an unhoused senior woman that I have never seen in my town before, and I started to tear up because I could see myself in her, in my future, where I could spend my retirement years living an unsheltered life, no longer able to afford the rent that I have. I'm here today as just one face of the thousands of teachers, parents, workers, Californians who rent and are stressed, dealing with we are stressed because we're dealing with minimal salary increases and simultaneously saddled with double-digit rent increases. Renters need relief, and I am urging our elected leaders to vote yes on AB 1157. It is extremely reasonable and fair to landlords and is the least you can do if you are serious about keeping California housed. Vote yes and do the right thing before it is too late.
Thank you, Lydia, for sharing your story. It's powerful and it's heartbreaking, and it's too common. Let's hear more stories from more folks who are facing similar situations. So next to the mic, I'd like to bring up Celine Nguyen from the amazing community organization APIN. Celine, where are you at? There you are.
Hello, my name is Celine Nguyen, and I'm a second-year student at UCLA with the Asian Pacific Environmental Network, also known as APEN. I'm here today to further add to why affordable housing is so important to immigrant communities. I'm here today to say that immigrants contribute deeply to California's communities, but too many are one rent increase away from losing their housing. One example of this is my grandfather. My grandfather is a Vietnam War veteran who came to America in the 70s and now lives in a mobile home park in Santa Ana. For years, his rent would increase so drastically that most of his income went towards it, leaving little for basic needs like groceries and healthcare. My mom and I would often visit him weekly to help him with everyday necessities like driving him to doctor's appointments and helping him manage his bills, but it was still a struggle for him to get by. Because of this, I worked with the organization VitRise in Orange County to help maintain a citywide 3% rent cap in Santa Ana that made a huge difference for my family. After the rent cap passed in 2021, my grandfather no longer had to fear drastic and unpredictable rent increases much beyond what he could afford. This showed me how much of an impact rent stabilization can have on low-income residents' lives, and I believe the Affordable Rent Act will ensure all California tenants can feel that same security. I imagine a California where all immigrants like my grandfather no longer have to worry about eviction and homelessness. With this being said, I'm urging our elected leaders to support AB 1157 and cap the rent at 5%. AB 1157 will keep immigrants safe and our communities whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celine, for sharing your story. We've heard from teachers, we've heard from students. We're going to hear from a few other folks. I'd like to actually bring to the mic a friend of mine who spent her years as a community organizer and then became an elected official. She's been fiercely serving the residents of Los Angeles in the legislature. Please give a warm welcome to Senator Lola Smallwood-Cuevas.
Good afternoon. So glad to be here with the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, ACE, Housing Now, PICO, Public Advocates, and Unite Here. This is a powerful moment, not just for our cities, but for the whole state of California. And I'm proud to stand with my colleagues today as a co-author of AB 1157. Legislation that strengthens statewide rent protections to keep housing affordable and prevent excessive rent hikes for millions of California renters. We fought a long time in LA to get caps on rents. It was not easy. And we have a long way to go in the city. So I'm glad to see the state of California stepping forward on this issue, and I'm so proud of the author for ensuring that it's not just city by city by city, but our whole state that needs protection from these hikes. When families have to spend up to 40%, 50%, 60%, 70% in some cases of their income on housing, we have a problem. And we know that many tenants have seen, and certainly after COVID, spikes of up to 45% in their rents. I myself, I'm a renter here in Sacramento. I was paying $2,100 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment last year. Now it's $2,900 a month. No one should be forced to choose between paying rent and meeting basic needs. And with the passage of HR 1, this big, ugly, shitty bill, I want to say, for too many Californians, we're being pushed even further into the brink, more into instability, more into having to choose between feeding our families and keeping a roof over our heads. Last week, the governor made something very clear, that California will not be taken over by Wall Street investors, big corporations, driving up our rents and stripping our communities of stability. We will not allow this to happen this year or any year to come, because we are going to pass AB 1157. Protecting people means protecting our housing opportunities. Protecting and capping rents means protecting the bottom line of every Californian. Human rights is housing. Housing is a human right. And every Californian deserves safe and stable and affordable housing. That's why I'm here and so proud to be a co-author of this important bill. And when we fight, folks, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. And we will win 1157. Thank you.
Mi nombre es Edgar Valenzuela.